This is another segment of Berkshire Education Now. My name is Andrea Wadsworth, and I'm here with my co-host, Quinn Burnell. And today we are very honored to have some of the amazing leaders of education K through 12 in Massachusetts and Berkshire County, along with a parent joining us. So with that, we are here to discuss Berkshire Education Now and everything that's happening in the Berkshires. So I'm going to hand that over to Quinn for introductions of our guests today.
Hi there, everybody. My name is Quinn Burnell, and I am a junior at Lee Middle and High School. So we're just going to go through and do a couple of introductions, and then we'll get right into the questions today. We'll start off with Commissioner Riley. Thank you for being with us today.
Thanks for having me. My name is Jeff Riley. I'm the Commissioner of Education, K-12 in Massachusetts. I'm also a parent, a proud parent of two Boston Public School children, one of whom has some special needs, and I'm just excited to be here.
Thank you so much, Commissioner. Dr. McCandless.
Hi, I'm Jake McCandless. It's a pleasure to be here. Mr. Burnell, you were probably like a second grader across the street at St. Mary's when I worked in Lee, so it's a pleasure to see you and to meet you. And I too, I'm the father of three, two Pittsfield High graduates and one that's a junior, and suddenly the father with two college-age boys home and very unhappy about it. But it's an honor to be here.
Thank you so much for joining us. And Miss Connor and Hannah.
So my name's Kimberly Van Duzen. I'm a registered nurse at Berkshire Medical Center. I also am a mom, two kids in Central Berkshire School District. And this is my daughter, Hannah. She's in kindergarten at Craneville Elementary School in Dalton. Say hi.
Well, thank you guys for joining. Andrea?
Yes. So we are so glad that you are here with us. And I have the first question, and that would be, what was your first initial thoughts when you heard about COVID-19? And the reason why I asked this question, and I'm going to pose it to everyone and we'll go round robin, is it wasn't even on my radar when this happened. On March 1st, I heard about COVID. I kind of joked to someone I had the flu-like symptoms and I have the corona. It's not so funny now. So I'm just wondering what your thoughts were before we knew the initial impact. Like, was it on your radar is the question. So Quinn, you first. Was it on your radar?
So thank you for that. I would have to say that at the beginning of March, when we were, still in our daily school routine, it was lowly on my radar. It was kind of just a thing that students talked about. Oh, it was overseas. It wasn't really affecting us. We didn't really, have two thoughts about it. And then very, very, very quickly, we, kind of spiraled into it, and people started to get more nervous. And then kids started to joke about not having school. And that led up to March 13th, which was actually the first case in Otis, Massachusetts, was our last day in school. So it was kind of abrupt for everyone. That day, we got an announcement over the loudspeaker just saying that we should take home things in our lockers in case we were to have a long weekend for cleaning. That was what was posed to us. And then very, very quickly, we were told by the governor that, it might not be so quick back to school. So I'd have to say that it definitely wasn't on my radar, and then it flew right on.
Dr. McCann, yes, Commissioner Riley?
So yeah, it's hard to think that was only 8 or 9 weeks ago when the closure first happened. What I would say is we had been monitoring what was happening in other countries, but there was still in the beginning the hope that this was going to be a short-term closure and not a long-term closure. And the first things that I did with my team at the state was really two things. First, we made a concerted effort to stand up our feeding centers to make sure that all the children that were on free or reduced lunch were able to continue to have meals. And so we were able to work with local districts and set up over 1,400 of those across the Commonwealth. And the second thing I did actually happened on the weekend before the governor announced the closure, which is I drove to WGBH over the Mass Pike in Brighton and got the security guard to let me in, and got him to give me the phone number of the president of GBH to see if they would be willing to house educational programming on television between the hours of 12 and 6 is what it became, because we were worried that we knew that there were some districts that didn't have access to computer devices or had internet connectivity problems, and we wanted to make sure that right at the beginning there was educational resources that were available to families.
Wow, that is, thank you for doing that, like being intuitive to think about that first step. Dr. McCandless, how about you? What was your feelings in your district? Pittsfield is the largest district in Berkshire County, so I find it interesting where you guys were.
Yeah, we had students traveling for February break, as most high schools do, and so this really came onto our radar over that week of February break as we started to get a few concerned calls about where our students were and what was happening on the other side of the planet. So, we informed all of those families to be looking for, high temperatures, other symptoms of the coronavirus. So we were thinking about it, but I remember that day, the Friday the 13th, the day that, as Quinn said, we closed. We held a meeting in my office right here in Pittsfield with all of the superintendents from Berkshire County. And we were not social distancing. That was about a week or two before we knew that phrase and what it meant. But we decided that we simply needed to close even ahead of the governor's announcement. And we were just a day or two ahead. And so we did announce about lunchtime that day to our families and to our students and teachers that they needed to take what they would need for the next couple of weeks, because we assumed that this would be 2 weeks. We would know everybody who had it, and we would be good to go to come back. When the commissioner says that his top priority was making sure that students in the Commonwealth were fed, I sat in my office, I believe it was March 15th, it was Sunday night, and it was 7 or 8 o'clock or 8:30, and Commissioner Riley took a call on his cell phone from this panicked superintendent over some challenges we were anticipating over feeding students. And about 10 minutes later, I got a call from the head of nutrition services in the Commonwealth. So, I'd be a liar to say we were prepared for this. We just finished our distributing 2,500 Chromebooks a couple of weeks ago, to be able to do that. But we're very grateful to have the support, not only of great colleagues here in the county, but wonderful colleagues across the state, all the way through the Department of Elementary and Secondary Ed and Commissioner Riley, all the way through the governor's office and the lieutenant governor's office.
It's funny. So a side note on that, my superintendent wasn't available that day. So as the assistant superintendent, I had the honor to sit there at that table, and the leadership that came from that table was amazing. It was a very quiet moment, but you all moved in one unit. And so I was humbled to be part of that. So thank you for that on that day. I'll never forget it. Kimberly, Mrs. Van Dusen, what did you think? I mean, you're in the medical field. Did you see this coming?
No. So in the beginning, it was very much downplayed, I guess. We thought that this was just another form of the flu and that it didn't affect children. And, the highest risk population we knew were going to be the elderly folks. But no, we didn't realize that this was going to be as bad as it got. And over the next few weeks, when they first announced that we had cases, seeing the numbers coming out of New York and the numbers starting to come in Western Mass, started to put things into a more serious perspective. But no, in the beginning, we kind of all just thought, even the kids' pediatricians, March 2nd, we took a trip and went to Florida. We were in international airports. Like, you know, the kids were we had cold and cough symptoms, but not the coronavirus, but it wasn't a concern at the time. And then just as things progressed, it was kind of like, is this real life? Like, what is happening here? So I was glad to see that the schools had been closed down, and then, you know, the progression of how that happened with the kids not going back to school actually seemed like the safest thing to do.
So do we actually get to watch this on TV?
Yes, Hannah, you do get to watch this on TV. You are going to be a superstar. So with that, I'm going to mute myself and let Quinn handle the next few questions.
Sure, thank you. So my next question, I posed the thought, what were your first initial thoughts when you realized that we needed to change our learning models over to remote? We'll start off with Commissioner Riley.
Yeah, thank you. You know, I think just to kind of underscore everyone else's point, we were really hopeful in the beginning that this was going to be a short-term closure. And then obviously it turned out to be much more extended than everyone had thought. With that said, we kind of broke out how we thought about learning in Massachusetts into 4 phases. The first phase was that first week where we got everybody home safe and sound. We set up our feeding centers. We got GBH to help us, and we kind of told districts to give kind of enrichment activities for students to do. But when we realized that was going to be more than 1 week, we worked with the PTA, the Superintendent's Association, the School Committee Association, both teachers' unions, just like the really big players in education, to put out our remote learning guidance. And that happened about day 9 into the pandemic, which basically said students should be learning about half a day, and teachers should check in with their students multiple times. And we want you to teach, go deeper on the standards that kids have already learned for the first 2/3 of the year. And so that was kind of, that happened, you know, in about week 2, and that carried us towards the latest, when the governor announced we were going to be closed for the rest of the year. Then we put out a new level of guidance, which said, essentially, we want you to go a little further in your teaching. We want you to teach the essential standards that we think kids need to have to be ready to go on to the next grade. And I think that was the right decision, because when we first kind of all went home, everyone needed to get settled, the teachers, the kids. And so just going over material that they had done, I think, was educationally appropriate. But now that we're settled, and now that we realize we're going to be out of school for the rest of the year, this is an opportunity for us to make sure that our kids really have the key standards under their belts, that they're ready for to go on to the next grade level. And, you know, look, I mean, the reality is typically May is spent with MCAS testing, and we're not doing that this year. So this allows the teachers more time to get the information out to the students. It's been a challenge, I would say, right? I think the last thing I'd say is the 4th phase is what's coming next, which is what it's going to be like to reopen schools. And that's what we're working on right now. But when I think about how it's the challenge of remote learning, I think what we saw during the first week, there was some concern from families that this isn't robust enough. And then after we put out our first round of guidance, there were a lot of families saying this is too much for us. And we kind of told superintendents, you know, you've got to kind of find that Goldilocks-like zone, the right amount, and find that groove in your community, what works best for you. And since then, I think people have kind of found their footing. And so that's kind of how we've thought about it in the education space.
Well, thank you, Commissioner. I definitely just wanted to say, from a high school student perspective, I think that I and my fellow students really appreciate the fact that you decided to go with kind of a review first when we were getting settled. I think that was very important, and I think that it could have been detrimental to not only our mental health, but to, you know, just our situation if we had to just keep plugging along in the effect that we were. So thank you for your response, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Dr. McCandless, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, our thoughts, you know, of course, immediately, as the commissioner said, our first thoughts were, you know, we were concerned about our staff's health. We were concerned about our students' health, and concerned about the health of the families that we serve. We were concerned about nutritional needs. We were very grateful to see the guidance start coming out about what the expectations were from the Commonwealth. We have been following right along with the 4 phases and have teams here in Pittsfield that meet a couple of times a week at individual school levels, facilitated by the central office, to get plans together for all of those phases. And now we have moved into planning for phase 4, even as we continue to plan for how to perhaps do remote learning better in case we have to do this again in the fall or the winter. Our concern is in any community that just has a great deal of diversity of all kinds, was we knew and we know that we have some families who have all the resources in the world to learn right at home. They have people to facilitate that learning right at home. And then we have families that don't have those resources, and we have some families we know that don't have homes. So we immediately began on an electronic remote learning plan, and began, utilizing the public TV program that the commissioner asked to have put together, utilizing all of the information that was coming to us from the department, as well as using our own resources here locally in the Berkshires. We also very quickly in the first week of shutdown ordered state curriculum framework aligned workbooks. And we had those, we worked with a manufacturer that mailed them directly from their warehouse to all of our K through 8 families. So that if, and then we communicated with families in multiple ways, here's how we're going to use the workbooks. These are not in addition to the electronic, they are instead of, and count every bit as much. And we can collect the pages back by mail. You can take a picture of them on the phone, just trying to keep families connected and moving forward. And then I know, Quinn, you mentioned that you really appreciated the review time. My daughter that's still in high school, who's a junior, has 2 former English teachers for parents. We were thrilled. She used, like, that first 3 weeks, she probably read more novels for fun than she had in the previous 10 years. And we felt really good about that. We encouraged families to use that time, learn about the things you want to learn about as you're reviewing. So, and it's still very much a work in progress.
Well, thank you, Dr. McCandless. I really like the fact that you had mentioned how you looked at the perspectives of all your students, and you didn't just kind of profile everyone into the same level.
Thank you.
And you really realized that so many people have so many different specific needs, and it sounds like you guys are doing a really great job, catering to everyone's needs. So thank you.
Thank you.
So Ms. Van Dusen, what were your thoughts when you realized that you had to go to a remote learning setting?
In the beginning, things seemed very overwhelming as a parent, just because my kids are in 2 different grades, so they're in kindergarten and 2nd grade, and there were many different learning apps to use. They were using Epic and Prodigy and Dojo and Google Classroom and Eureka and several others. And so trying to keep track of that, trying to make a schedule for them, now I was suddenly responsible for making sure they attended their Zoom meetings, because they're still too young to be responsible on their own or even be self-motivated to do their schoolwork. So it was a lot at first. The first couple of weeks were very overwhelming, I guess is the best word I can think of. But it got better as the weeks went on. We kind of fell into a schedule, and the kids know when they have to log in and go to their classes, and it's just become the new normal, I guess, for right now. But yeah, challenging.
Thank you.
Quinn, do you mind if I hop in? So, Kimberly, tell us what your iPad is sitting on right now, and is Hannah going to tell us about her assignment for tomorrow?
Well, I think Hannah reached her limit of sitting in the chair, so she's she went off to go play. But yes, we're using our stack of Brain Quest books and Eureka math books to prop up the iPad tall enough so that it didn't cut off the top of my head. But Hannah gathered them all for me and put them under the iPad. And yeah, so I'm like, oh, it's a great use for our math workbooks.
How about the assignment tomorrow for Hannah? I found this really interesting how you're adapting.
Yeah, so Hannah is an older kindergartner. Her birthday is in November, so she's been 6 for most of her kindergarten year. Prior to kindergarten, she actually did an online school preschool. So she had been exposed to remote learning before, and she's at a higher reading level than most of the kids in her class. She's actually reading at a 2nd grade level. So the biggest obstacle for her is when she's in the Zoom classes and they're learning about sight words and ABCs and things like that. She's bored. So it's really hard for her to be motivated to go to her Zoom classes, and it's becoming a daily battle. So I've had discussions with her teacher, and her teacher's aware, and her teachers have been great. Both of the kids' teachers have been great about this, but her teacher's been trying to come up with ways to kind of motivate Hannah to come to the Zoom classes, to make her feel like she wants to be there and do something that's more at her learning level, because the kids are being taught in the Zoom classes kind of across the board and not just at their individual learning levels. So tomorrow, the teacher asked Hannah if she wants to teach the Zoom class and teach them about the United States, because she has a placemat on her table here that has the map of the United States on it. So Hannah was very excited to hear that this morning, and she is very excited to teach her Zoom class tomorrow on the United States.
Well, that's an exciting opportunity. I wish that I could teach my class about the United States. I don't know, not on the high school level. So the next kind of thought that I pose is individual to the person. So for the commissioner, my question for you is, how are your plans going on the statewide level?
Yeah, so, as I said earlier, we are in phase 3 right now, but we're actively planning for phase 4, which is reopening, what that will look like either in the summer or in the fall. And it might look very different. We have a really robust working group made up of parents, teachers, students, teachers unions, superintendents associations, school committee association, and the Ed Davis group. Ed Davis, of course, was the police commissioner in Lowell and also in Boston during the marathon bombings. He's got a consulting group that really focuses on health and safety. And we're working on building out guidance for what reopening can look like. And so people should stay tuned for that.
Thank you. Well, we will definitely stay tuned for that. So Dr. McCandless, how is remote education going on your district level? You are the superintendent of the largest school district in Berkshire County. So how's that going for you?
Well, we have 5,200 students, between 5,200 and 5,300. We distributed, over the past 2 weeks, almost 2,500 Chromebooks. And we had about 400 students that already had Chromebooks. So we know, and because we're using Google Classroom as our platform of choice, we can really look on a daily basis, on a school by school level and an individual by individual level, what percentage of our students are engaging, and our principals, our school adjustment counselors, our guidance counselors, our caseworkers spend really all day, every day, some of them reaching out to families that are, that appear to us to have the resources and to have the tools, but are not seeming to engage in Google Classroom. And then we continue to try to work with all of our families and just do, on some levels and with some individual families, just basic check-ins to make sure that they have the things they need as human beings and as guardians and as parents and as children. And so we have, the commissioner mentioned the partners that he can get with in working toward phase 4. And we're very grateful to Dr. Barbara Malkus, who is representing the Berkshires for the Superintendents Association in working with the commissioner on that. But really, one of the bright spots of this whole coronavirus situation has been to just remind us of the importance of school, but to remind us of the importance of those partnerships with our families and with other organizations in the community who share the same goals that we do. And so we try to communicate to our families about once a week that if you're trying, that's a win. If we can help you try, that's a win. You know, I look at Kim and I think, you know, here's Kim juggling. Overnight, she went to not only a medical professional and a parent, but now she's a superintendent. Now she's a cafeteria worker. She's a custodian. She's the principal and chief disciplinarian. You know, it's just a massive adjustment for all of us. So we spend a lot of time just reminding people, education is a process. We will be able to play catch up. And we really need to take care of each other and take care of ourselves, no matter what phase we're in.
Great, yes, thank you. So, Ms. Van Duzen, I ask you, what do you expect for the fall? What do you expect to have to do when it comes time for school to start up again?
Well, I expect the kids will have to wear masks to school. And I think that's a good thing. I think kids generally spread viruses very quickly because they touch their mouths all the time and their noses and sneeze and cough, and you know, they're kids, so that's what they do. I think we're lucky that in Berkshire County we're a rural enough area that the virus has been good to us, I guess, in this area, as far as like we're not having such bad cases right now. But I do worry that when the kids go back to school that things, you know, might spread faster. I would like to see like a hybrid learning process with the remote learning and in-school learning, which I think would be good. The kids are definitely missing the social aspect of being inside of the school right now, especially Hannah, who's in kindergarten. This is her first year of really getting to know school. It was a very stressful time for her to begin school in the beginning, and now I feel like she's going to have to start all over again with first grade. But also she'll adapt better because she's not, both of them really, because they're still so young, but they'll adapt while going into school. A single learning platform would be great, instead of having so many different apps for each grade. Similarly to like the way the college is set up with Moodle or any other learning platform, where kind of all the classes are in one spot where the kids can log on and work on it at their own pace and kind of do things at their own levels. But I know it's going to be tough. I worry about, you know, a second wave too, and what's going to happen if a child in the school does test positive, and then what do we do? You know, is there another shutdown of the schools? And there's just so much to consider and so many different aspects of it, from learning and medical and everywhere in between. So it's a tough question to answer.
Well, thank you so much. And, you know, thank you for providing your insight to this. And thank you to all of you for joining us today. We really do appreciate your time. And, you know, thank you for all the hard work and dedication that you're putting into, you know, my future and all my other students' future. We really appreciate it. Back to Mrs. Wadsworth.
Thank you, Quinn. He's a superstar, isn't he? Like, he's just great. Thank you so much for joining us today. Commissioner Riley, thank you for coming to this platform and being heard for Berkshire County. We hear you through our administrators, but it's great to bring you into the houses of our community members. It brings comfort. It really does. And Dr. McCandless, you know what I think of you. I think you are top A, right? So thank you both for being the leaders in education in Berkshire County and in the state. We look to you, and we know that we are in safe hands. So we appreciate all you're doing. And Kimberly, thanks for being a great mom. Thanks for being a great mom. We didn't see Connor, but he's in there somewhere. Everyone, thank you so much. This is our end of our segment for Berkshire Education Now. This is what is happening right now in Berkshire County. So thank you, everyone, and I am signing off.
Thank you.